This is Patricia Hazel, and I am here in Gordon Heights, Long Island, for the Hassell family reunion. Many of you may not have heard of Gordon Heights, so sit back and learn a little about the history.
My name is Russell Hassell Spence Diagolo Wilson. Born and raised here in Gordon Heights, actually born in Port Jefferson, New York, which is 8 miles north of here. My grandparents moved out here in the late 30s, early 40s. Both sets of grandparents, the Wilsons and the Spence Hassells. They came out in 1938 and 1940, 41. Helped establish the community of Gordon Heights, which started in 1927 by developer Louis Fife, who knew there were people in New York City in their early 20s and 30s that came from rural backgrounds and was looking for that kind of lifestyle again. So he had purchased tracts of land. This portion of Gordon Heights, where the fire department is the beginning of his development, and then it moved northward down to the next tier where I grew up, and then following down another tier, which leads you out to 25 in Coram. The community was very instrumental in the history of this area. It started as an all-black community. It's the fire department was one of the first in New York State to be an all-black fire department, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was they wanted to protect their homes, so they started the fire department in roughly 1947, 48, and then created the fire district, I believe, in 1950, 51. And the community still thrives today. My younger brother still lives here. I live in Harlem, New York. I think that's it in a nutshell. You can go to GordonHeights.net and learn everything about the community from its earliest days. What makes Gordon Heights unique from other African American communities is that that's the way it started. It wasn't a white flight, blacks moving in and whites moving out. It started as a black community. Fife canvassed the Bronx and Harlem, New York. He advertised in the Amsterdam News, and that's how many people found out about this. And they loved the very rural environment. You know, it's a piece of God's green earth. And then it came out, it was a wilderness, nothing, no roads, no light, no water. They started coming to vacation out here for the summers on the weekends. And as the community began to grow and thrive, we used to have a hotel over here run by the McNeese brothers. And so people would come out on vacation. It was sort of like their summer place to go in the summer. I had their own little baseball team at one time. Like I said, this fire department was one of the biggest things. It was actually the heartbeat of the community when I was growing up. Everything started here. Fire department did not look like this. You'll see it if you go to the site, what it originally looked like, but it grew as the community grew. Well, the Hassells, we started this back in the 60s. We actually used to have the reunions at my parents' house on Gray Avenue, where I grew up. At that time, the family, most of it, almost all of it, still lived in New York City, in the metropolitan area. So a lot of my parents' generation would come. Today, we're all over the place. We're down in Florida and Georgia and Atlanta and LA and Massachusetts and Maryland, so it's a little more difficult, but we used to get together, and so this is really fantastic to be able to continue the tradition and to watch my daughter's generation pick it up and run with it. So hopefully they will continue to do this in years to come.
He always made me know about the Hassell side, and I tried to bring cousin Loretta Hassell from 228th Street in the Bronx today, but she's kind of afraid to come out. But her mother, Clarita, I will never forget the way she made coleslaw with the pineapples. And oh, I don't want to talk about food. But nevertheless, it was absolutely wonderful. So I'm so glad to be here. I remember coming here through the years. Um, I would like to introduce Alan Carlton from ABC Direction, and we're here to kind of make a chronicle of this family. And we always knew we were, all of us, everyone here, we always knew we were special. You know, we always knew that they were special. Like I remember Lorraine Timms told one of my students, "Who does she think she is?" And I went down to the office and I told her who I was. Okay. Nevertheless, it's so wonderful being a part of this family. I'm waiting for my daughter and my two little grandsons to come because I have their T-shirts right here, and they have to know who they are. So we have to, each generation has to envelop the generation underneath.
I was born in 124th Street and First Avenue in New York City, 1906. We had a fire in the building that we lived in. I was about 2 years old. My parents moved up to Mount Vernon, and I was up in Mount Vernon there 30 years. I got married at Mount Vernon to Mary Carpenter. And so we had 4 children that was born in Mount Vernon, and we figured that Mount Vernon is changing, you know. I mean, and from a country it's getting city-like. People from New York City was moving up there, so I figured we'd move out here, see. So I met Mary's cousin, Mrs. Clark. She had property out here. She asked me would I bring her out here one Sunday, and I brought her out here, and I liked it. So I met Mr. Fife down on this land here about 1938. My wife knew nothing about it. Of course, she didn't like it. She came from the country, and she wanted to stay in Mount Vernon there. My wife came out with the children every summer, and she got to like it.
Yeah, when we came out first to really stay overnight or something, we had a tent given to us, and I used to bring the kids out, really Benny bringing us out for the summer. Of course, we started out, we'd stay over a weekend. He was with us all the time then, and then we'd pack up and go back. And then he would bring us out for on Saturday and put up the tent. And each time, you know, we had to put this tent up with all this stuff because we didn't have a place to leave it or anything. We had to take it back to the city, bring it back out. And he would put the tent up for us. And on Sunday evening, he would go back to the city, and we would stay out for a week. And then it ended up that he brought us out, and we had the tent and all the bunks and whatnot. And he left us out for the whole summer. I think on every tree we had a hammock. And the kids used to get a big kick out of that. But now during the day, they would walk to the lake. Everybody would get together, all the kids in the neighborhood, which wasn't many. Bobby Wilson and Ruth Wilson and my 4, and sometimes Miss Sanford's daughter. And they'd all walk to the lake, which was walking across a field in back of Mr. Wilson's house all the way to the lake. And every day they did this. So one day they says, "Mama, come on, go." I said, "Boy, that walk is really too much." "Oh, come on, it's not so far." So here they're taking me through the woods, and we got almost to the lake, and we had to pass through somebody's farm. And this person came out and saw us, and boy, you should have seen us run, because he started chasing us. He went in and got a shotgun. He said, "Say, get off my property, get off my property." And kids have been taking this shortcut all along, but I didn't know, you know, that was the end of me in the lake, though. I didn't go back any more of that. But the people out here during that time was so nice to us because there wasn't many people, and I suppose I was about the only one out here camping. And whatever we need, different ones would stop. Like Mr. Wilson, he would stop and ask me, "Do I need ice?" And he would bring me a piece of ice, and I had one of those portable, you know, ice boxes. And Mr. Beaton, he would had a garden, and he would bring me vegetables because he knew I had the children in case I'd run out. The kids would walk all the way to Coram and Medford for for a loaf of bread. Nobody bothered anybody. In the evening, when it got cool, after we'd eaten dinner, I'd cooked and eat. All the kids would gather and walk over to the playground. It wasn't nothing but a field, but anyhow, they called it the playground. And they'd get over there and they'd gather and sing and, just have fun together.
About 1940, I started building. Piece by piece. I can only build weekends. And it took me about 3 to 4 years to build it, weekends. Because a lot of times it rained or it snowed. After I had put my roof on, just the top paper, see, and they had a windstorm up here, and it blew the whole roof off on the ground, the top paper. Blew it on the ground, and everybody, knowing that I was not a rich man, just a poor working man, and all the work I was doing, my roof was laying on the ground. So he writes me a special delivery and told me that I had a disaster, and my whole roof was blown out, and I was thinking that the beams and everything was blown. When I came up, that Sunday. So I didn't think no more. It didn't worry me. So when I come up here, I come to find out that it was just all the top paper blown off. And it was all together, It was wasted. I mean, I couldn't use it, nothing. It took me about 6 or 7 years to finish the house. I'm not a carpenter. I have a carpenter's name, but I'm not a carpenter. But anything I want to build, I study it. And when I start with it, I always come out on the top with it. And I enjoy doing it.
I said, gee, what's your name? Well, my name is Barbara Garfield. Oh, that's interesting. And so she wanted to just give me details. I said, ma'am, I really would love to come, but I really don't think I should because I'll be explaining the whole time to everybody there that there's no way we're relatives. She says, well, I saw you were African American. I said, yeah, I am, but it's a made-up name. She sounds so disappointed but I couldn't attend. I really didn't want to, have to go through that. Well, let me just add about our family. They are really legacy names, like James. Our grandfather's name is James. Our Uncle Alvin is James. My late twin brother was James, and he has a son, James. So that's one name that stays in the family. Our grandmother Carnetta, she had a son. The oldest son was Arthur Hassell, and my younger brother, is Arthur, and he has an Arthur. And
he had Carnetta,
Carnetta is
a granddaughter, which was Carnetta.
And my youngest brother is Julian Jr. Julie, my sister, is Julianne, which is Julian, female version. She's Julianne. So not that we didn't have a whole lot of names. The rest of us are named after English kings. Go figure that. But yeah, that's.
And your father is Israel. It's the middle name.
Julian Israel.
After.
Yeah, his original name was Joseph. He changed it to Julian. I have no idea. He never gave us a straight answer. So I'm like, okay, so it's probably a wanted poster for Joseph Garfield somewhere. But anyway, I'm just happy to be here. I got here from Los Angeles last night, and just did a beeline. We're looking forward to this for 20 years. Not that I get a chance to miss anyone because we're on Facebook every day.
Russell, it was so sad. My mother and I were at Home Depot in Georgia, and I came out and I saw this lady had a tag on her car that said Barbados. So of course, I get adrenaline ups when I see people from Barbados. So I made a beeline over to her car and said, "Oh, you're from Barbados? What part?" So she said, "From Christchurch." I said, "Really?" I said, "My family's from Barbados." So I said, "What is your last name?" She said, "Jackman." I said, "Really?" But I was so excited to go back to the car to tell my mother I met a Jackman. I didn't think to get the lady's number because you don't come across Jackman that often. And we probably were related, but I blew it. I just had to keep an eye out for her in Georgia. Jackman, Jackman, or MON, Jackman.
Has anyone done Ancestry.com? Yeah. Okay. I went on a long time ago. I haven't been on many years, but I saw that James Garfield, I got him, had a brother named Arthur Hassell, and I did not understand what that. And he went to Cuba.
Oh, really?
No one else saw that.
No idea.
Okay. I guess I got a mystery I got to solve it for the next reunion.
My name is Emily Henry, born in Grenada, West Indies. Sailed to the Panama Canal in 1913. Came over to America in 1916. And then up to a little place called Gordon Heights on the island in 1941.
And then when you came into the United States,
Yes,
where did you live?
New York.
New York City.
Hmm.
And what did you do in the city?
Oh, well, I came a housewife. I came married, so I was a housewife then. And I worked a little, yes.
What did Mr. Henry do?
Just worked in elevator operator, and then he worked in a factory as a machinist.
How'd you find out about the community?
The community I found out through a friend who had an outing up here, a bus outing. And my husband always was fond of the country, not me. And after we roamed around, he finally relocated this spot. And my husband put some money down, and he bought a quarter of an acre, paid on time until we owned it. And that happened in about 1938. And we made not our resident home, but a little bungalow to spend for a little summer bungalow. Bring the children and everybody's child I could pick up in the city along with us because they enjoyed it. And we would spend our summer here. And I grew to like it after a while. I never lived in the country before. I always lived in a city part. And when I came here first, it was really tough, really tough. The roads weren't paved, and we had no electric light. We had no water. We used to get our water from Mr. Beaton, a neighbor of ours, who was kind enough to give us water, drinking water. When we wanted a bath, we went to Bartlett Lake and get our bath. First I thought I wouldn't make the winter, but we made the winter, the first winter. Now, we remodeled our home first. We remodeled the bungalow. Removed it from where it was a little bit and made a basement, put it on it, add 2 rooms in the back and a porch in the front.
Who did your construction?
Mulberg, because he built Mr. Beaton's home, and so we contacted him and he built for us. It was difficult getting a loan because the place wasn't well known, and it wasn't established. But eventually we got a loan for the Oysterman Bank in Sayville. And we got a very small loan because we built on cash and go as we had money. And by that time my husband got to work in Northport Hospital. And he lived on the job, and that meant I was here alone. And I was the last house here because the other part hadn't opened yet. And the road had stopped right there. And I found myself getting very lonely. Then I applied for a couple of children at the welfare. Not so much for the money, though I needed it, but more for companion, because my husband staying down on the job in Northport, that left me alone here all the time. And as I said, it was very inconvenient, no electric, no heating. You had to heat by coal stove, and You had to gather wood in the summer. It was just tough going, very tough going, very, very tough. But we made up our minds. And then it became interesting because only a few of us were up here, and we just got together. We had a togetherness. And we would fight fire, especially in the spring when the other people come up and would start a fire, not knowing the danger there was in fire, spreading. And the women, it was really amusing to see the women with a shovel going out to fight fire, and we did, and we were successful at it, very successful. We knew how to back a fire back and stop it from spreading. And I could name some of the names that fought the fire with me, and Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Beaton, Mrs. Fredericks, Mrs. Grant, Mrs. Fox, Mrs. Phillips, if she was home, because she worked, and Mrs. Woodburn, if she was home, she worked too. And it was a pleasure to see us, and Mrs. Pearsall, Mrs. Wilcox, Mrs. Carpenter, and it was a pleasure to see the togetherness. One would call the other, "There's fire." As they walk by, "Get your shovel," and we would walk out the road, and we would go out and we would fight the fire because all the men had gone to work. There was no men, there was no fire engine, there was nothing, and there was no water. And so we learned to fight fire with sand. And we did. We were successful. We were very, very successful. Our civic organization, we worked together. We used to sell dinners and cakes and whatnot. I didn't mention Mrs. Miller, one of the pioneers women that really fought fire and worked with this community very hard. And we would go out at Saturday nights when the children had nothing to do and no place to go. We would just get there and make a little party for them out of nothing, and they'll buy the little drinks and that's how we get our money to begin to start our fire department. And the men would donate blocks and donate time. It was just willing workers here, just willing workers. We were just one big happy family in here.
And when I graduated from grad school, undergrad, my first year when I graduated from undergrad, I had to give honors to him, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have graduated high school. I graduated undergrad and graduate honors, and it was all because of the foundation that was laid for my Lord. And not only that, prime example, I went to an all-white school in Forest Hills. I don't know if you remember back in the 60s when they started shipping us out to the white neighborhood schools. Well, I had a problem with a fifth grade teacher. And I would go home and I would tell my parents and Uncle Alvin, my fifth grade teacher, for some reason, I don't think she likes me. Well, he started coming up to the school, standing outside the classroom. Then I would go home, he'd say, "Well, how's it going?" I said, "I raise my hand all the time. She sent my report card. I don't participate in class." Worst mistake she made, doesn't do her homework. That's when he started coming in the back of class and sitting in the back of class. I was the target that day. Louise, Louise, Louise. But no sooner he wasn't in the classroom, I went back to the same old thing. Okay? So finally, he went to the principal and said, "I want her moved out of this teacher's class because I can see she will ruin her." And I remember when I became a fifth grade teacher, I was just as nurturing. I loved my fifth grade class because I remember the experience I went through in fifth grade. So he was wonderful. Well, all of them were. They all had their own little specialties. But Uncle Alvin, nobody will ever forget him.
Okay, let's look at the story. Three-story house in the middle of an urban block, 99th Street, Northern Boulevard, very busy street. He was on the third floor. Perched at the window in the middle of the block because his number one rule for the kids, do not cross in the middle of the street because it's traffic. Middle of the block, you had to go to the corner to Northern Boulevard, cross the street, and then come back down. If you were ever caught, you would hear him. Now, I crossed the street in the middle of the block. I thought I looked up, he wasn't there. And I was in the middle of the street. He waited till I got to the cross. He said, I'm coming to get you. And I'm like, okay. So I went to the corner, came back. By the time I came back to the middle of the house, middle of the block, he was coming up the door. I'm 8 years old. I ran for it. I ran for it. Down the block was PS 92. The school was a Saturday. I remember it clearly. I ducked through the hole in the fence. He was right on my tail. Everybody in the park was like cheering me on. Cheering me on. I literally ran around the block back into our place, hid under the bed. I'm like, what did I do that for? He dragged me up on that bed and there was a scrap waiting for me. But that's what, and I mean, you're a kid, you don't want that, but listen, I'm a grown man now. I'm so happy that someone else looking out for me because my brother Arthur got hit by a car twice.
Thank you for viewing Patricia's Potpourri. This was a historical episode about Gordon Heights and the development of a community in Long Island. This will continue on the next episode.
Just
I
for
didn't
those,
remember the
for
details.
those who didn't know, the song that was last played was called The Glow of Love. If you know the voice, it's the voice of Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
And Wayne recruited him to join this group called Change. And Wayne wrote the lyrics for that song. It was 1980, #1 song, dance chart for 18 weeks. Totally dominated summer. He's written other songs, but that is his master song. And years later, Janet Jackson sampled it for All For You and it won a Grammy. So, but it's been sampled over 50 times.
Family that wrote.
What about
So
Giving
just-
Love?
Yeah, I want to
Giving Love, did he write that song?
No, Giving Love was with the Voices of East Harlem, and he did not write that song.
He didn't write it.
No.
But the,
That was, I think, Leroy Hudson who actually produced it too, from
Did he sing?
the impression. Oh, he sang it. Yeah, I can hear. It's a choir, so I mean I can hear him.
Oh.
But yeah, but the Voices of East Harlem was the first group that he was with,
Oh,
and then he got with Roy Ayers, and one of the albums with that was the soundtrack for the Coffee movie with Pam Grier.
oh,
So he wrote and performed in the last scene you hear him singing
oh.
in that movie.
something that just made us proud was, so Debbie suggested using glow of love for the background music when we were on the planning call, but first she said use giving love.
I said
Yeah,
that.
no, you said giving
Yeah.
love.
I love that.
So when I was double checking, at first I was like, giving love, this is it, Debbie, and she was like, no, use glow change, a glow of love.
I changed.
And I was like, oh, okay. So then she sends the link. And when I play the song, I'm like, this is like a famous song.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows this song. Our cousin wrote this song. It's like everybody knows this song. Because when I listened to the voices of the
Voices of East Harlem.
the voice of East Harlem, I was like, okay, I don't know this song. But then when I listened to Glow of Love, I was like, no way. Our cousin made this amazing song. Like, this is such a prideful moment. So.
Flowers bloom in morning dew, and the beauty seems to say, it's a pleasure when you treasure all that's new and true and gay. Easy living, and we're giving what we know we're dreaming of. We are one, having fun, walking in the glow of love.